2008 Mercedes GL320 CDI front air spring strut assembly replacement. I'm Brian Eslick from How To Automotive. I'm going to walk you through the steps of replacing that. So I'm going to start by getting my vehicle racked up, opening the hood, and we're only replacing the left front on this particular model. So one of the first steps we need to do is get this strut bracing out, and I'm going to start by removing the E14 female Torx bolt here and the 16mm nut on the back. So I'm going to remove these two on the driver's side here, and then I'm going to remove the two on the passenger side, and then on the passenger side, to get this strut brace out, we need to remove the 10mm bolt here, and then we also need to remove this air duct out of our way to get the bolts out. There's no clearance here, so after removing the nuts, you won't be able to get the bolts out like that. So what you do is you just take a flat blade screwdriver, put it under this clip here, give it a pop. Under this clip here, give it a little pop, and then you lift it straight up. Now you have room to pull your bolts out. Now that you got the bolts removed from the passenger side and the driver's side, you can lift it up like this and pull it out of the grommet over there, and just pull it out, or we don't really need to take it all the way out. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to lift it up like this, and then I'm just going to put something underneath it to support it underneath and hold it out of my way like that. Okay, before we get started, we're going to pop the fuse panel off here in the engine bay, and we're going to look up where the pump fuse is for the air pump, and we're going to remove the fuse. That way the pump doesn't try to run on us while we're working on the suspension. So now that the brace is out of our way, I'm going to go ahead and take a 10mm bolt wrench and loosen up the air line, the supply line going to the strut, and let the air bleed out. And then once the air starts bleeding out all the way, then I'll take the line all the way off. Now that the air line is removed, I'm going to go ahead and lift the vehicle up and remove, in this case I'm removing the left front wheel. So next what we need to do is we need to get the sway bar link off. We need to get this little plastic bracket that's holding the hose, the brake hose, and the ABS wire on. And the way you remove it is you just cut the zip tie that goes around the bracket. So you cut the zip tie off, and then this will just lift up and out of your way. And then I've squirted mine down with penetrating oil. It has a little bit of rust on the nuts and bolts, and so I'm going to let it soak a little bit, and then I'm going to remove the bolt for the sway bar link in, pop that out of the way. Then on the bottom wishbone here, I'm going to remove the bolt that goes through the lower control arm, the nut and bolt. Remove those. So when I went to take out the sway bar, it was at a severe angle like that, and it wouldn't quite come all the way out. So what I did was I put a pole jack underneath the sway bar link here and screwed and basically pushed the sway bar up a little bit like that, and that changed the angle enough where I could get the sway bar link out of the strut assembly here. And then like I said earlier, I cut the little zip tie and popped off the clip that holds all the wiring onto the strut. Remove the now I'm going to remove the pole jack for now. So next I'm going to remove the level sensor arm here, and it has a nut and bolt that goes through the upper control arm. So go ahead and remove that, and then let the arm here just hang down here. So after loosening the nut for the upper control arm right here, what I did was I screwed it back on a couple threads. Now I'm going to take a large hammer like this. I'm going to strike it on the end of the spindle here without hitting the boot or the stud there. And just a couple little hits like that, and then now that'll pop. It'll pop free like that. You can go ahead and remove your nut and push the other up. So as you can see, the spindle, the upper control arm and the spindle will come loose like that. You want to be careful not to pull the spindle too far. You got the axle here. You don't want to pop it out of its inner joint here. So now what we're going to do is we're going to lower the vehicle back down, and we're going to remove the 3 nuts on top of the strut here. So there's one back here. So you remove the nut here, here, and here. So now that the 3 bolts are removed from the upper strut mount here, I'm going to lift the vehicle back up. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a long pry bar in the lower control arm like this, and pry it down a little bit. And that'll give me enough clearance to lift up on the strut air spring here, and work it out of the car. To get the actual strut out, I had to have somebody else pry the lower control arm down and axle down like this, while I lifted the strut up and lifted it over the axle and slipped it off towards the back of the car. Now I got my new replacement strut here, and I'm just going to match it up, make sure everything looks good, and go ahead and remove the this fitting here. We're going to install that later. So now I'm going to reinstall the new strut. So I'm going to come in from the back side of the wheel well here, come in at an angle and go and stab it up into the orifice here, and then I'll have my coworker pry the suspension down like that while I pop the wishbone part over the axle. So after getting the new strut in there, and also to help clear the axle, I actually had to stab it through the holes on the top up here. And then once I got it in there, then I had my partner pry the suspension down like this, and I was able to just slip it over the axle shaft here. And then what I did was I continued holding it up into the cavity here while I had my coworker start the nuts on top here. Now I got the vehicle back in the air. I'm going to use a pole jack like this, and I'm going to put it under the lower control arm and screw it up a couple inches like this. So I screwed the pole jack up. Now I'm in my strut wishbone part here is lined up with the bolt hole in the lower control arm. So I'm going to go ahead and slide the bolt through. So I got the bolt going through the lower control arm on the wishbone part of the strut here. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm gonna swing the spindle up like this, a hand, and I'll push the control arm out of the way and stab it through the ball joint. So I'm going to swing it through and stab the ball joint. Pull the arm, pull it through and start your nut. Now that the upper control arm is just stabbed through the spindle here and the nut is started, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and lower my pole jack here, and I'm going to put it underneath the see, we got a severe angle for sway bar link end to go in, and it won't go in like this. So what we need to do is just screw this pole jack up a little bit, and that'll reduce the angle of this, and we'll be able to slide it through and start the nut and bolt. So now that the sway bar link in is mounted back through the strut, I'm going to go ahead and lower the pole jack out and remove it and set it aside. So now that all the main hardware is mounted onto the strut itself, I'm going to go ahead and tighten the lower wishbone bolt and nut. I'm going to go ahead and tighten up the sway bar link in, and then I'm going to go ahead and tighten up the upper control arm ball joint here. Tighten that all up. To tighten up the upper control arm, what I did is I got my long pry bar and I wedged it over the top of the upper control arm, and I'm going to pry the ball joint into the spindle here. And at the same time, I'm going to use my impact gun here with the stock 21mm socket and the wobbly, and I'm going to tighten it up. And what happens if you don't do that, the ball joint will actually spin in there and it'll never get it tight. So by compressing the ball joint into the spindle here, it locks it in place, and then you're able to tighten it up. So now that the upper control arm is tight, the wishbone part of the strut is tight, the sway bar link in is tight, we can go ahead and reinstall the level sensor through the upper control arm. So go ahead and reinstall that. So now we need to reinstall our little wire loom holders here. So it's only held on with a zip tie, so go ahead and pull the old zip tie out. You can see how it routes through there, and go ahead and route the new zip tie through. And then what you're going to do is on the corner here, it has this little hook, so it's got a hook on here first like that, and then you rotate it around and pop it into place like that, and then put your zip tie on and tighten it down. So now after one last double check that everything is tight in here, I'm going to go ahead and screw in my my wheel pilot stud tool. If you guys don't have these for working with European cars, these are great for taking, because they have these stud type lug nuts. You know, when you take the last one off, the wheel likes to fall, and also when you put them back on, it's really easy to guide the wheel on. These are available at my website at howtoautomotive.com on the tools and product page. So after installing the wheel, we're going to lower the rack down until the wheels just touch the ground. We're not going to lower it. We're not going to lower it all the way. So you're going to lower it until it looks about stock height. So you want it to look roughly around stock height. You don't want to lower it all the way because that can actually pinch the bag. So lower it down to where it's about stock height. Now we can go ahead and reinstall the airline, but it comes with a new fitting, so I recommend you change the fitting out. And also go ahead and tighten and torque down the 3 bolts here. And after we get the line started and snug, you're just going to start it up and snug it. And then we're going to go ahead and put the crossmember brace back into place. So after reattaching the strut brace, tightening it up on both ends, on this side right here, when you take this out, some of these grommets and stuff may have popped out. Go ahead and re-secure those. As you can see, like here, I have a little grommet that popped out. Re-secure all that, and then make sure you tighten the bolts, the 10mm bolt that held this here. Reinstall the vent inlet right here, so it just lines up some slots down there with the little corrugated teeth here. Reattach the clips. So now we're just going to reinstall our fuse and reinstall. Now we're going to start the car and let it idle. And after it idles for a couple of minutes, what you'll do is you'll operate the ride height button here. And then what we'll do is we'll finish lowering the rack down. By then, all the suspension should be pumped up and aired up to its normal settings. Now you can finish unracking your vehicle, and that'll complete the air spring strut assembly on a 2008 Mercedes GL320 CDI diesel. I'm Brian Eslick from How To Automotive. I'd like to thank you guys for watching my videos. Encourage you to subscribe and invite you to check out the How To Automotive website at howtoautomotive.com. Thank you very much.